sing some of the old hymns, you know?
Yep. I will. You ready? Is that too close?
No, it's okay. Can you hear?
Okay, without further ado, here is Olive Sandvig. How's that?
Thank you. All righty. You know, the woman who had the greatest influence on my life was my grandmother. My grandmother. I'm telling you, she was a Christian, and I loved her dearly. I called her Nana, and I was her first grandchild. You know, I came from a broken home, and my mother had to work. We lived with my grandparents. My grandmother had given birth to 11 children. 11 children. 2 of them died. One when he was 6 months old of pneumonia, and another baby that was only lived 2 days. And Nana said that she was a blue baby. Well, that meant something was wrong with the heart, you know. So they actually raised 9 children. And they all were born in Canada. So was I, Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, where it was very, very cold. And they decided to move to warm California. And my Nana and her 3 minor children came here to California. They settled in San Pedro. And my grandfather stayed behind and came about a year later. And they lived in San Pedro, and my grandfather had a butcher shop in San Pedro. And, you know, in those days, you know, they had those great big freezers that they walk in and out of, you know. And my goodness, one day he went to work and it was pouring down rain. It was just really terrible. And but he wanted to go to work. And it was in and out that big freezer, you know. He was only 62. He got very, very sick. And he died of pneumonia. Left my Nana, a widow, at 57 with 3 teenagers. Nana took care of me. And that's where she loved me. She took care of me. It was just a godsend that, you know, I was only 14 months old when my mother brought me here. And we always went to a church and Sunday school, at a Methodist church there. And when I was 12 years old, on April the 2nd, 1932, I asked the Lord Jesus to be my Savior. And Nana gave me my first Bible. And she wrote in it, "Search the Scriptures." And 2 of my favorite verses are found in Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. "Trust in the Lord with all thine heart. Lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths." You know, I never felt like I was an only child because I had so many aunts and uncles, and I had called my grandfather Daddy, and because George, my uncle, and Olive and Margaret, they were just like my big sisters and my big brother. And so I always called him Daddy. Nana taught me how to sew. Nana taught me how to cook. And she took care of me when I was sick. And I remember one time when I had bronchitis, and she would make mustard plasters, put on my chest so I'd get better. And then another remedy, she learned all of these things from her mother, my great-grandmother. And another she had was to boil some water and put it in a bowl and put some eucalyptus oil in it and put a towel over my head so I could breathe it, you know. She had all kinds of things, you know. But I should have mentioned to you, it's really, sometimes my brain doesn't work too good. But anyway, I should have told you this before. When we sat down at the table, Daddy was the head of the house, and when we set the table, we put all the plates by him, because he put the food on the plates and then passed it around to each of us, you know. And anyway, and then after they said grace, and then when you were finished eating, you could not leave the table until you say, "May I please be excused?" I mean, they were really strict on manners. You had to wash your hands. They'd inspect your fingernails to see that you had clean fingernails. But this is part of, you know, your manners, you know. And a lot of our children don't have manners now, you know. And we're just a different generation, I'll tell you. All right. Well, I graduated from high school in San Pedro, and then we moved down to Newport Beach. And the first job that I ever had, it was Flossie's Hamburger Stand right on Ocean Front down in Ocean Beach, down in Newport Beach. And I was flipping hamburgers down there in the summertime, that first summer. And then afterwards, I was off to college. And then as a young lady, I started dating. And the friend that I was dating, he had a friend that he wanted me to get a date for. You know, well, I had a cute blonde friend, Winnie. And so anyway, I introduced her to the friend that he had, and who should that be but Melvin Sandvig? And you know the rest of it. But anyway, they took us out to dinner, and they proceeded to take us to the Palladium for a dance. The young people in those days, they liked to dance, and they still do, I think. And my partner, he wasn't a very good dancer. He couldn't keep time to the music. I wasn't really enjoying the evening. And so, lo and behold, we changed partners. That started the courtship. And he just would call me in, want a date, and send me flowers and bring me seas candy, and you know, he was just. But he was a kind, gentle, sweet man, and then he wanted to introduce me to his family, and they were a Christian family, and they were lovely. They really were, and so it wound up by him wanting. He proposed. And he asked my mother for my hand in marriage. And because my grandmother had a Scotch background, my great-grandma was born in Glasgow, Scotland, and she loved bagpipes and everything Scottish. So the church that we picked was Wee Crooked the Heather in Glendale. And the pastor that I had all through Sunday school and church down in San Pedro was a Methodist church. And we had him perform the marriage ceremony. And let me see, I've had notes here, but I'm just kind of mixed up. All right.
You made your own wedding dress.
We what?
You made your own wedding dress.
Oh, I made my own wedding dress. I made my
Maid of honor's dress.
made actually made Evelyn's dress, her mother's dress. My Nana made the wedding cake, and I mean, it was really nice. And the reception was at your mother's house. And it had, I'll tell you, it had rained all week. And that day that we were going to get married, the sun came out. And people were calling us and said, oh, you're going to have a lovely wedding. It's sunny and so forth and so on. That evening, it poured down rain. And Nell had to carry me over your mother's threshold. We were just, it was really something, yeah. And your mother had the fire going, and everybody was trying to get warm. It was really something. But anyway, the Lord really blessed us. I mean, we have had so many miracles in our life, and I just thank Him from the bottom of my heart. You know, we were blessed with 4 beautiful children. Donna, Melvin Dean. Most of you know him by Dean, but he wanted to be called Melvin now, okay? And there was Ronnie and Peggy, my youngest. Well, Ronnie was an 8-month baby, and he had a heart condition. When he was 16 months old, his face was swollen. So we thought he had the mumps. And in those days, that was in 1949, we called the doctor, and he came to the house, and he said, this baby does not have the mumps. He's in heart failure. We have to call the children's hospital and get him to the hospital right now and have them get a crib ready for him. That baby was in the hospital for 6 weeks. And I was in the hospital having Peggy. The doctors had told us that we would never raise him. The best thing for you to do is have another baby. Think how God knows long before doctors know. I already had Peggy. And when Ronnie was ready to come home after 6 weeks, and I had him on my lap there and talking to the doctor, I put my hand on his chest, and it was bulging out like this. And I asked the doctor, what happened? And he said, his heart blew up like a balloon. And he held up his fist and he said, his heart is 3 times bigger than a man's fist. Can you imagine him living with a big heart like that? Well, he was in and out of the hospital many times. Every time that he gained 5 pounds and the fluid was building up in his body, I'd have to take him over to Children's Hospital for him to have a shot. And that dear little boy, I mean, because he loved to go to Sunday school and church too, you know? And he'd say, Mommy, there aren't any hospitals in heaven, is there? No hospitals in heaven, that's for sure. You see, when we go to drive down to Children's Hospital, you pass Kaiser Hospital, Presbyterian Hospital, and Children's Hospital, and so anyway, it was really a burden to have to go over there and get us shot. And so the doctors finally taught me how to give him a shot. If he gained 5 pounds, he was building up with fluid. Now, when he was 5, I did not want to put him in public school. I mean, you know, kids fooling around, playing hard, and I mean, he was small for his age anyway. And so he needed special attention, and I wanted to put him in a Christian school. And just a few blocks from where we lived in North Hollywood at that time, there was a Christian Missionary Alliance church right on the corner of Whitsett and Irwin. And we had been attending that church, and I found out that Culture Academy downtown, that was started by Mabel Coulter and also Maud Whipple. They were two ladies that were missionaries over in China, and when the doors closed in China and they came home, she started that school downtown. And then they wanted to open a school out in the valley, and they approached this church that was so close to our house. They wanted to rent rooms there, and it was going to be from kindergarten through 3rd grade. Maud Whipple would be the principal and teach 1st grade. And when I spoke to the superintendent, Mr. Blanchard, and I wanted to enroll Ronnie, my husband didn't want me to because financially we have bills from hospital bills and all. And at one point my husband was working 3 jobs. He was a workaholic. But I'll tell you something. He never liked to pay interest. I mean, when we'd get a bill, we'd pay the bill. If you have a charge and it comes, you pay the bill. You don't pay that little minimum amount. You pay them forever, you know. And that was the way it was, you know. But he said, our children can go to public school. We pay taxes, you know. And I wanted to put Ronnie in a Christian school. I was determined to. And when I talked to Mr. Blanchard, he had all the teachers lined up, like Maud Whipple and the other teachers, but he didn't have a kindergarten teacher. And I said, well, I'd like to teach the kindergarten teacher, you know. And I kept telling him my qualifications and everything. And he hired me. And he said, I asked him, Peggy was 3. I said, well, I can't afford to pay babysitting for Peggy. And he said, well, bring her along. Bring her along. So anyway, being a small school, that first year I only had 6 pupils, and 2 of them were my own. And Melvin Dean, Mr. Blanchard said, well, all 4 of your children can go to Coulter. So Donna went downtown to the Culture Academy downtown. And then, and the tuition was free for teachers. Miracle. Can you imagine? And then, but the kindergarten was only for half a day. And they asked me if I'd take the recess time when the other children came out for recess in the afternoon. But if I had any free time, I'd go in and sit at Maud Whipple's 1st grade classroom, because she was a terrific teacher, and I would learn how she taught phonics, and I learned a lot from her. I really did. And the 2nd year I was there, I asked Mr. Blanchard if I could put Peggy up, promote her. You know, he said, no. I've seen children skip grades, and it isn't good if you do. And I said, well, she'll get bored if she has the same, you know, number books and alphabet books and everything. And he said, well, change the books. Every year he let me change the books.
3 years.
3 years. Peggy was in my kindergarten class, and I said, that's why she's so smart. Oh, dear. Anyway, the 4th year, halfway through the year, what happened was Maud Whipple got very sick. She had pneumonia. She was in the hospital, and Mr. Blanchard approached me and said, since you've been in her room, seeing how she teaches, will you take her first grade class and get someone to take your kindergarten class? And light came on because my friend Mildred Glosser was a teacher, and she came and took my kindergarten class, and I went in and taught Maud Whipple's first grade class. You know, the Lord works in wonderful, wonderful ways, and not only that, then Mr. Blanchard thought the next year I could take over the school and be principal, and I said, I have 4 children, I have too much responsibility that is impossible. I was sorry, but I could not take it. He could not find anyone to take over the school, and the school had to close. The school had to close. But you know, when God closes one door, He opens another. Miracle after miracle. When the school closed, summer vacation, I found out about Village Christian School. And I asked Mildred, I said, would you like to go with me over to Village Christian School? And she said yes. You know, 'cause she wanted her children in the village also, you know, so she didn't drive. I would have to pick her up, you know, so I took her to the village, and Henry Trist interviewed us, and you can't believe this. He needed 2 first grade teachers, and he hired us. And if you know these buildings right along here, 1, 2, 3, 4. I was in room 4. Mildred Glosser was in room 3. We had, now, you know, at Culture, I started with 6 in my classroom the first year. I never had more than 12. I come to Village, and in that little room, I had 32 desks. It was like sardines in a can. I mean, we had airplanes zooming over, traffic on Victory, recesses of kids out here in the patio. Oh. How in the world could you get anything? Oh my word! It was really something. Well, in Village, they bought the 33 acres out there. So the next year, it was in the Nazarene. They rented rooms out in the Nazarene Church out on Sunman Boulevard. So the first grade was out there, and my goodness.
What about when you attended your first church service?
Oh, yes. Well, anyway, all right. That's right. Peggy reminded me. They're my cues. All right. I've got pages here. All right.
Your miracle finding Village.
All right. We went to Village. All right. The first time that I ever came, I figured if I was going to teach at Village, I should come to the church and see, you know, about the church. All right. And the first service that I came to was Communion Sunday. And I was sitting downstairs about midway back where I usually sit. And on Communion Sunday, I hear these voices. The choir was up in the balcony singing, and it was just like you were listening to angels singing. And I just felt the presence of the Lord. and the Lord had answered my prayers for my family. And so in 1957, I joined the church. So I've been here for 55 years.
And you joined the choir.
And I joined the choir. Peggy, Ronnie was in 4th grade in Fran Friend's room. Mm-hmm.
And my brother.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then I had to take a leave of absence because Ronnie was very sick. So that was in the middle of the year. So Irene Hughes took my 1st grade class, and I stayed home with Ronnie. And my mother had heard about UCLA and open heart surgery, and she thought that I should transfer Ronnie from being over a children's patient over there, see what they could do for him at UCLA. It was the mitral valve that they needed to close. This was very interesting to me because the surgery was a success. They had to fix the tricuspid valve, I think it was. And he lived for half an hour, but the muscles collapsed. So he's with the Lord in heaven. I'm sure that he knew, but it was a miracle that we had him for 10 years with that big heart. You know, it was just a real miracle. But what they told us, he had a normal heartbeat. And I wanted to go back and tell you that the doctor that I had, the obstetrician, with Donna, you know, he told me I was going to have a girl. They didn't have ultrasounds and all those things that they have now for you. And when I was carrying Melvin Dean, he said I was going to have a boy. When I was carrying Ronnie, he said I was going to have a girl. The heartbeat. See, the heartbeat was faster. You know. When I was coming out of the anesthesia, and the nurse was saying, "Don't you want to hold your baby boy?" And I was looking around the room. I was expecting a girl, and here I had a boy. But you see how the Lord knows. Oh my goodness, it's just so wonderful. All right. So the Lord took Ronnie home on February the 28th, 1958, and he was 10 years old. And like I said, it was a miracle he lived to be 10.
About that anonymous person.
Oh, right. That half year that Melvin Dean and Peggy were at Village, and I was going to pay the tuition for the children at Village, and some anonymous donor had paid the tuition, and that was another miracle. I tell you, so between Coulter, 4 years at Coulter and about 14 and a half years at Village, I've had wonderful experience with boys and girls and teaching them about the Lord. It's just been a real blessing. And there's been so many opportunities to serve the Lord here at Village Church. Like Peggy said, I was singing in the choir. I taught Sunday school upstairs in the primary department, Adventureland on Wednesday night. I had that children's choir for 10 years. I love that. When Pastor Grant was here, he'd have the choir, the children's choir, singing once a month in the morning and once a month in the evening. And the reason why, he said, when you have the children perform, you know the parents are going to come out and hear their children. It's true. It's very true. We had some wonderful musicals that the children put on. We not only put but we'd take the children to the retirement home in Burbank, or there by the high school, and we took them to St. Joe's Hospital, and we sang for Pat Straub's mother when she was in the hospital. They let us do that, and convalescent homes, and it was a blessing for us and a blessing for them.
They were all so little, and so were you.
But what I wanted to tell you is when I went back to Village after Ronnie had gone home to be with the Lord, Henry Trist asked me if I wanted my first grade class back, or would I take the third grade. Esther Parrish was going to have Sunita. And I said, well, I don't want Irene Hughes to be out of a job, so I'll take the third grade.
And guess what? I was in the third grade. And I couldn't call her mom. You know, I couldn't say, hey, mom. You know, it's like, oh, teacher.
Oh, my goodness. And I was in the third grade for 3 years. And the first opportunity that I had to go down to kindergarten, that's where I went. Because in third grade, some of the boys were taller than me. And in third grade, they're getting sassy and they talk back. They're coming out of their shell. Oh, dear. Anyway, so it was down with the 5-year-olds, and I loved them. I love those 5-year-olds. And so with 32 5-year-olds. And it was, well, I had friends, 3 children.
All 3 of them. At the same time.
I had Claude and Esther's 2 children, 2 girls. It's just, I love children. I really do. And it's just, the Lord has been so good. I just praise and thank Him for my life. If you did the numbers, you know that I just celebrated my 92nd birthday. 92. Oh, I forgot to tell you, and Barbara did this too, when we hosted Taiwan students 5 years. They'd come over here to learn about our culture, and they blessed us, didn't they, Barbara? They sure did. And then another big miracle, and I don't want to keep you all night. Okay, it was in October of 1997. Peggy was very sick, very, very sick. She had major surgery, and I thought, well, that's the end of her medical problems. But she had terrible head pains. She couldn't read this card that I held up to her. Well, I was 49 when I had bifocals. I thought, well, maybe she needs bifocals. I'll make an appointment with Dr. Berg. We took her over to Dr. Berg, and he examined her, and he came out to the waiting room where I was sitting, and I was sitting right next to Jack Modglin. And he said, you get this girl to a neurologist right now. And he went back into his office. And Jack looked at me and he said, must be something serious. So we proceeded to go back to the hospital where she had gone just a few weeks before for major surgery. Okay, all right. At the hospital, they put her in for a CAT scan, and from there, they took her, ambulanced her to USC, and the diagnosis was a brain tumor. But thank God it was not benign. It was not malignant. It was benign. It was a brain tumor the size of a tennis ball, taking up 1/4 of her brain. The night before the surgery, the doctor told us she might not make it. She might be blind. She might be paralyzed. Oh, they tell you all these things so that you can be prepared for what might happen. But you can see another miracle. Carolyn was with me, and when we came, well, it was a 12-hour surgery, and they told us to go home, because they'd call us, when she came out of the anesthesia. And when they called us and we went over, and rainy, the rain was pouring down. We walked into ICU there, and she was sitting up, head all bandaged.
Hi, Mom.
She was there for almost 2 weeks, and then transferred to Rancho Los Amigos for 3. And that was quite an experience. She had to go through rehab. And they have a little, at Rancho, they have a little apartment for you. And the night before she was to be released, I was supposed to go over there, and they had a little kitchen and bathroom and everything. And so anyway, we had to fix something for dinner and all. And I was supposed to be taking care of her, I'm a very sound sleeper. When I hit the pillow, I'm asleep, I woke up in the morning and she was not in bed. She was gone. I looked out in the hall and she was in her wheelchair, down by the security guard, down the hall.
Piano in this place.
Oh my goodness. Anyway, it was really something. All right, what I forgot to tell you is the doctors told us that they couldn't get all of the tumor. They left, it was like a half a baby fingernail. It was still there, and so she had to have MRIs every 6 months to see what was happening to what they left. And 4 years ago, the doctor held up 2 fingers and he said
It's growing back.
it had grown that much. And they had to decide what to do with that. And they decided gamma knife surgery. So that's what happened 4 years ago. And they said it might not work right away. And, but just,
Last month, the reports were, it's disappearing.
it had shrunk,
It's shrinking.
it was half, and now it's,
Like a little ice cube. It's melting.
but it's very, very, very strange. But I'll tell you, I am so thankful for my village family that have prayed over all of these events that have taken place in my life. I couldn't have done it without the Lord. I'll tell you, I don't know what people do, that don't have Him as their Savior. And I just praise Him for my church family. I praise Him for our family. I couldn't ask for more wonderful, wonderful children because, at my age, things are getting heavier. Jars are getting harder. You go to Costco and, paper towels, toilet paper, whatever, it's heavy, And your juice, they're 2 together and it's heavy. You know what I do? You know what I do? If I see a man, I say, "Are you strong? Can you help me?" So he'll help me. And twice at Costco, one of the boys that, do the carts, I was trying to put things in the trunk, and he said, "Lady, can I help you?" And another time I asked the man to help me. Everybody has been so wonderful. And I just thank the Lord for my son, Melvin Dean. he's a gem. He has a room for me in Agora. You know, he's a judge in Chatsworth now. He spent 20 years with the LAPD, 9 years as an attorney. His family was up in Tahoe skiing during Christmas vacation one year, 9 years ago. And Pete Wilson was our governor. And Bill Gates was our chief of police. They were trying to reach him, and when they finally called home to see if they had any messages. And here's all these messages from Pete Wilson. He was trying to get in touch with him to swear him in as a judge.
Over the phone, swear him as a judge.
Oh, so, anyway, and he's a very wise judge. I don't know if you read the article in the paper. Whenever Karen sees her dad, anything that case or anything, you know, she'll send it to me. But just a few weeks ago, there was an article about all of the PCP and, you know, that angel dust and all that stuff, remember? And he had to send the search warrants out, and they rounded up, you know, the men that were behind all of these drugs, and millions of dollars, you know. But anyway, whenever there's been a good jury case, I like to sit in his courtroom. One time, Ruth Rennie's grandson was in his courtroom, and Ruth told him, "Will you tell the judge that your grandma's is a friend of your mother's." So he was going to go up to the judge. Well, you're not supposed to approach the front bench, you know. So he raised his hand, you know, and so Mel told him to come on up to him. He says, "My grandma's a friend of your mother's."
Don't approach the bench again.
Oh dear. Anyway, oh goodness. But I do. I have a wonderful family, and they're very helpful to me. And I just wanted to tell you, I have 10 grandchildren. I have 9 great-grandchildren.
You have 2 adopted children right here.
Right here, Joni and Harry, and I met Joni at the Burbank Y. And if you wonder why I go to the Y, I was brought up at the beach, San Pedro and Newport. You know, I love to swim. And, it was 22 years ago. The Lord took my husband home in a heart surgery. He had a quadruple heart bypass. And I remember Frances Martin, Claudia's mother, came over to pray with him because she had the same thing. And you know how wonderful she came out of her surgery. And Dave McCarran came over to the hospital, the same one that Vic was in. Yeah, that's where he had his surgery. But he didn't make it, and that was 22 years ago. You know? And that's when I joined the Y, because I had arthritis so badly, and I just needed to get back in the water. I was already there. And so anyway, and Joni, I met her at the Y, you know, and I've made a lot of friends over there.
She's called you mom ever since?
Right.
Oh, that's how it happened. Oh, she wanted to come to the hospital to visit me, and she had to say that she was related. Well, we drove down because it was I didn't know. Hey, I didn't know.
I'm sure that you don't want to go home so late, so I think we should wrap it up. And because of Easter coming, just want to close with two songs. One is "We Are So Blessed." I've been so blessed, and I just love this song. We are so blessed. And then the last song, because of Easter coming up, "Because He Lives." Two verses of "Because He Lives." I can face tomorrow.
Okay, next.